Hey guys, and welcome back. It has been a long time since I've done a video. I can only apologise for that for those subscribers that are still sticking around. As I said, I do apologise. There have been some reasons for it. I've got some family ill health that I've been dealing with, and that's taken a little bit of my time up, certainly at weekends and so on. I'm not going to go into details, obviously it's a personal matter, but that is the predominant reason why I've not been around my channel for pretty much 3 or 4 weeks now. And as you can probably tell, I'm also full of cold. It is the season for it. I have a stinking cold, so apologies for my voice, probably my crusty nose a little bit as well, but it is what it is. It is the season for flus and for colds and so on, and I am suffering for it. But yeah, welcome back, and today's video we are talking a chapter approved. The book came out this weekend, and I want to sort of give my thoughts and opinions on it. So here's the book. It's softback. I was expecting a hardback, to be honest. I haven't been around the 40k communities too much recently, but it is in glorious softback. I suppose that keeps the weight down, production down and so on. And there is quite a lot of contents to it. And I have taken some notes, so I'm going to run through probably some highlights for me, and certainly some lowlights for any aspiring Forge World player or collector that isn't living in the 30k universe and they're looking to use their cool shit in the 8th edition Warhammer 40k environment. So what have we got then? Let's start with some generic stuff before we get into the real nitty gritty. Now, the nitty gritty, as far as I'm concerned, is match play changes and points changes. That is the most common type of game played as far as I'm concerned. Certainly is in the gaming arena that I play in with all my friends and so on. Those are probably the biggest impacts to the community as a whole, but there are some other stuff in there as well. So we've got changes to open play, narrative play, as I mentioned, match play, and we've also got some other bits and pieces that are that's in the book. So let's start with the value of the book. So I paid, I think, £15 for my copy of the book, so I get it through a third-party retailer. I don't tend to buy from Games Workshop too often. I do like a bargain. If you're into all of the different types of play, definitely well worth it. If you're interested in just the points changes and the minor changes to races and factions without a codex, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed, and what you want to do is stick to your list builder programs such as Battlescribe as a good example, and then save yourself some money. But if you're interested in all the other cool stuff that does happen in the 40k universe, so we are talking Stronghold, we're talking Planet Strike, we're talking Apocalypse, we're talking terrain changes and other cool bits and pieces like that, this is probably the book for you. I'm a bit of a fluff aficionado. I do like all the background, I do like the different types of gaming, so for me it does have some value. So let's talk open play changes. So I'm going to refer to my notes, so bear with me as we go through this. So, open play, which is, you know, bring and do whatever you like on the battlefield. Biggest thing here is the vehicle design rules for Land Raiders. So you can now tailor-make your own Land Raider with loads of big las cannons or Hellfrost cannons or Hurricane bolters all over the place, and you can now mix and match. But it is open play only approved, so you know, bring it along, but don't expect to use it in tournaments or any competitive scene, or even in narrative play. Really, it's an open play kind of thing, so play around with that to your heart's content. Other bit then, narrative play. So we now have rules for Stronghold Assault and Planet Strike. Now they used to be separate books back in the day. I do own both of those somewhere. They are now buried in the loft in my archives. Planet Strike and Stronghold I thought were very, very good additions to the game. So assaulting those bastion type things. Well, I think when bastions first came out and you had all that bits of terrain and so on, that was accompanied by these rules. And Stronghold Assault, you know, and Planet Strike were very interesting to play. I thought they offered a good variety. We now have new rules for that. I'm not going to go through all the nitty gritty of the rules, but just to let you know, that is now in the contents of the book. On top of that, then we have some stuff on battlefield terrain. So we have the collections of all the Sector Mechanicus terrain sets, which are awesome. I have purchased an awful lot of this stuff, mainly to play Necromunda, but also to build up my 8th edition terrain collection. So I'm furiously scraping away and cleaning up mould lines and so on, and that's going to be dropping in a video as I slowly get back into making videos again. So look for terrain videos in the forthcoming future on this channel. So what else do we have? We have faction rules changes then. So for all those races and factions that don't have their new codex yet, so we have Thousand Sons, Harlequins, Deathwatch, Genestealer Cults, Drakari, Tau, Sisters of Battle, Orcs, Necrons, Imperial Knights and Space Wolves. So that gives us a list of what is still to come with regard to codexes. I do wonder whether the newer codexes that have probably already gone to print ready for the new year are now going to be out of date. Or whether they're going to be retrofitted with all the new rules and all the new changes already. Only time will tell. So the key points here then, we have some new objective secured rules, so that clarifies all those races without the new codex, as I said, that troops can control objectives if your number's greater than the enemy. So it used to be just purely numbers. All those with new codexes can now claim objectives with objective secured troops, and then there's a tiebreak of number of troops on top of that. So everyone now has objective secured troops. On top of that, we have some new warlord traits for those factions. We also have some new relics for those factions, a couple of new stratagems each, and also a couple of replaceable psychic powers. The biggest one for me there is within the Thousand Sons. They now get some cool new additions for their psychic powers. I think there's one where it's a casting value of 7, roll 9 dice on an enemy unit, and any 6s cause a mortal wound. So more powers for psychic stuff. No changes to Smite. Smite spam is a big thing. There's lots of talk on community sites and so on about adjustments to Smite, which may or may not come. I think I read that for every successful Smite that you try and cast, the casting power required to cast it is increased by 1. So at the moment it's cast on a 5. If you do that and then your next unit attempts it, people are talking about making that into a 6 and so on, and it becomes 7 and 8 and so on. So the more Smites you do, the harder it becomes. Interesting, possible, easy change. Whether it becomes a fact or fruition, time will tell. So then we move into match play changes. So this is the points-based game, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the most common type of playing of the game. I know power levels are a little bit more popular, but still very much open to abuse. And talking of power levels have not changed under chapter approved. It's all points-based changes. Some slightly for the good, and when I say for the good, we're talking very niggly little changes between sort of 5 and 20 points in the positive direction, so they're becoming a little bit cheaper. But on the whole, there's a lot of stuff, which I'll cover in a minute, that is very negative. So for match play changes, then we have 12 new missions, 6 Eternal War, 6 Maelstrom of War changes. So that increases the core rulebook of 12 already, so we now double the number of missions. Haven't read all the specific details on there, but you know, there's the odd stratagem change here and there that both sides have access to, whether you're attacking or defending. And there's going to be a few twists and turns to make your games a little bit more interesting and a bit more variety. Other changes then, so we have understrength units. Now at the moment I do know there's some abuse of understrength units where you can run a unit of 1, and that enables you to fill out detachments pretty cheap, pretty quick. This can now only be done in an auxiliary detachment, so there's no command point benefits for auxiliary detachments, so you're pretty much going to get nothing. It just allows those people with the odd model collected, they can still field it, but they're not going to get any Brucey bonuses for it anymore. Now targeting characters has had some wording changes, which has led to some interesting shenanigans on Facebook threads, Reddit threads and so on like that. That it now removes the character or the characteristic part of your wounds count. It now just says if you have 10 wounds remaining, that you cannot be targeted. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So is that now based on your original characteristic, or is that now if you have a 15 wound model, it takes a strength, or it takes a last cannon to the face, suffers 6 wounds, he's now down to 9. Does that now mean he's withered up enough that he can't be targeted? In my opinion, I think this is badly worded. I think there's a lot of unnecessary extrapolation of the rules and people trying to potentially abuse it. I don't agree with it. If your starting wounds characteristic is above 10, you can be targeted. If it's below 10, you can't. It's plain and simple. Stop trying to be a dick. But it does clarify some other bits and pieces around targeting. So you need to be the nearest model as a character to be shot at, and you also need to be visible. But that means that if you've got an enemy unit that is nearer and is not visible, you still can't shoot the character. A bit strange, but that is part of the balance of the game, I guess. That, you know, these low wounded characters that you can't pick out, you can still play with some tactics to ensure that a nearer model is nearer the firing unit, even if it isn't visible, which offers some interesting shielding options, I think. Another big change then is with the command point use pre-game. So before the first battle round starts, there is no use for command points anymore. You can't re-roll the Seize the Initiative, you can't re-roll it for mission selection, and also at the end of the game, so if the game naturally comes to an end, before you get a chance to roll a dice to see if there's an extra turn, people were using re-rolls, quite rightly so, at the end of that, you know, at the end of the game to see if they get another turn. Now that could be to try and scrape a win or a draw or something in their favour that you could go for a re-roll. Now that is no longer valid. So you can only use your stratagem for a command point re-roll during the actual battle itself. So traditionally that's going to be from the moment you start turn 1 to the end of turn 5. So yeah, no more shenanigans on re-rolls of Seize the Objective or Seize the Initiative or anything else going on. So it's a big change to using command points. And also, if you've got variable victory points and things like that that are rolled at the end of the game, you can't re-roll them. So you're stuck with what you've got. So we have the change to going first then. That's now confirmed within the actual rules of the mission. So for these new missions, we now have, if you finish setting up first, you get +1 to the dice roll off, rather than being an auto go first and then there's the Seize the Initiative bit afterwards. Seize still exists, but if you finish deploying first, you now just get +1 to the dice roll. Something that I think everybody's been looking forward to, as a lot of lists have been built around minimum deployment to try and guarantee a first turn and look for these alpha strikes and so on to make a big difference to the game. That's now gone as well, so command points plus that now means that there's a little bit more of an even chance of the player deploying second having a chance at going first. The final change then is the boots on the ground rule. Again, something that I think most of the community has been known about for a while, and that is if your vehicle has the flyer battlefield role, that can no longer take objectives. So yeah, you can't now use anything with the flyer battlefield role. It says not the flyer keyword or anything like that, it is the flyer battlefield role. If it fits in there, it no longer counts as being able to take objectives. So let's move on to some points changes. Now I've made a note of some of the more interesting ones. I said some of the smaller units have taken a slight buff and debuff here and there, but very minor. But there's some stuff here that you have to question where the playtesting came in, if ever there was any. Conspiracy theories unite. We were told early on lots of playtesting had gone on. I assumed there was lots of proxying going on from our American friends who apparently were given privy to a lot of these rules, especially the tournament goers. And we know tournament goers are very good at building lists and very hard players to play against. But you have to question where they generated the initial points in the indexes. Now I have all of the Forge World indexes kicking around here, so there's an index there and there's another index there and so on. We have lots of indexes. We had 4 indexes, and there was points in there for a number of different units, and people enjoy using Forge World models. They're often a treat for birthdays and Christmases, or if you had a nice bonus at work, whatever. You want to put down a really cool model that's really visually impacting, has some good stuff on it, has some good powers on it. Not all of them were pay to win. Arguably some of them are pay to win, and they've been rebalanced. And when I say rebalanced, they can vary between not changing at all to 207% points increase. How wrong have you fucking got to be for a 207 point redress? Now, Games Workshop all over their community site are saying, well, we got to play loads of games and we got we don't get to play as much as the community. The community have played tens of thousands of games. They've given us their feedback. How wrong have you got to be for 207% differences? You've got to be fucking stupid. It's annoyed me, as you can tell. So let's start with some highlights then. So Warhound Reaver and Warlord Titans. A lot of people have enjoyed using a Scout Titan, a Warhound Scout Titan in their games. That's changed from 1,500 points to 2,000 points. That's gone up 33%. So you're not going to see them on a tabletop anytime soon. Reaver Titan, now gone up 66% to 4,000 points. And a Warlord Titan up 50% to 6,000 points. You ever thought you were going to get to use those? Think again. Very few scenarios at home with your friends, maybe the odd apocalypse game. Yeah, they're going to be gathering dust. Let's talk Thunderhawks then. Thunderhawks and Stormbirds, pretty popular. 650 points in the old days, up 104% to 1330 for a Thunderhawk. So if you enjoyed using a Thunderhawk and still having a relatively playable army in and around it, think again. The Stormbird, 651 points up. This is the one that's up 207%. It's now 2,000 points. So Stormbirds, yep, you're not going to see them on a battlefield anytime soon either. Typhons were pretty okay back before 8th edition. Had a nice big blast template. You know, they're a Bastion siege unit favoured by like the Imperial Fists and Iron Warriors. They've gone up by 39, nearly 40%. They're up to 720, so you're not going to see... Well, you might see one of those, but it's so overpointed now for what it does, you're probably not going to see one. The Mastodon's gone up by 27%. That's now 934%. Bear in mind, all these points are without war gear. Their war gear weapons have only changed minorly, if at all. So, but these are the core points changes, right? So, Fellblade tanks, 540 now, up 38% to 740 points. Again, now completely overpriced for what you're going to use it for. The Fire Raptor, however, which is one of my favourite units, I do like a good Fire Raptor, that's actually come down by nearly 25%. So that's now down to 190, plus its weapons, but now completely usable. Cerberus tank, 480 points, now 680, that's up by 42%. Again, now pretty much unplayable. Let's move into some Eldar. So, Elder Revenant Titan, again, used to be fairly usable in a 2,000 point list, not anymore because it costs 2,000 points, it's up 66%. The Vampire Hunter, again, reasonably usable at 900 points, now 1,500 points, so probably not going to see one of those again, that's 66%. However, the Phantom Titan at 2370 hasn't changed, that's had a 0% change. A little bit interesting that, you know, its equivalent number at 4,000 points for a Reaver, you can now almost take 2 Phantoms for it. Arguably the Elder Titans are crap compared to its Imperial counterpart, so maybe that's driven why it's changed. But 2,000 points, the Revenant is now equal to the Warhound. Arguable still whether it's any good at all. And on top of that then, let's cover the bigger demons as well. So we have Atos. Atos, arguably one of the most underpointed unit in the game, so that's the big screaming Hell Chicken. He's gone from 700 points up 214 points. So I stand corrected, the Stormbird isn't the biggest increase. 214 points of being incorrect. Well done, Forge World. It's now 1,500 points. Admittedly, the power level on that is pretty high, so you were unlikely to see it in many competitions, certainly privately run competitions. But at Games Workshop events, it was becoming quite popular. That's now been nerfed into the ground, because you're not going to get much more in your army for another 500 points. That makes this thing kind of not worth taking. Angrath, he's gone up by 27%, he's now 888, which is an old point cost for him. Scabiathrax has gone up to 777, again up 27%. And Zarakil, he's gone up to 666, an increase of just under 50%. So as you can see, the points that we originally had for our first 6 months of Warhammer 40k have now been blown out of the water, and the likelihood of you seeing these units in a game of 8th edition, rightly or wrongly, have probably been wiped out for good. Be interesting to see how Forge World sales figures are affected by this. A lot of people buy Forge World not as a pay to win. I know people might argue that pay to win is a potential abuse there, finding those really cheap units like I think there's a Chaos character in there, Heretic Chaos character, that was like 30 points for a full-blown Smitey character. He's gone up in points as well. But people like to have characterful or a little bit of unique or a centerpiece to their army, and that I think has been blown out of the water by a massive knee-jerk reaction. I liked seeing Revenant Titans on the table. I liked seeing Mastodons on the table. I like seeing some of the bigger heavy tanks kicking around, and now you're just not going to see them. They're just not usable outside of your home. And then even then you're going to be relying on sort of, bit of friendly banter and playing against those kind of models. But can you imagine the size of the army if you now want to play your mate's Thunderhawk, which I have done. If you see one of my battle reports earlier, I played a Thunderhawk versus Atos, the Greater Demon. It's just not doable anymore. It's just ridiculous. 214% increase. How wrong were you to start with? And we've now got this correction. I'm a bit flabbergasted by it. I'm a little bit annoyed by it. Just by the sheer factor of how wrong these things were in the first place, and we're now taking away large elements of flavour from lots of people's games, and it's disappointing to see. Now there are some cheaper options in there. There are some smaller tanks and so on, but they just get lost in the standard GW kits. I mean, the odd Sicarian tank or whatever, it doesn't stand out. It's just another tank with a different gun on it. It looks the same as a regular Predator almost. But you're just not going to see the odd cool stuff anymore. It's really disappointing. And on that disappointment, I'm going to end the video. But I'd like to know your thoughts of Chapter Approved, if you've gone and bought it, or if you don't give a toss. Either way, are you just going to use a Battle Scribe or something like that for any of the minor points tweaks to regular Games Workshop models? Are you disappointed that Forge World is now pretty much pointed out of the game? How do you feel about it? You can tell my opinions about it. Yes, some stuff needed to be redressed. Atos specifically needed to be redressed because 700 points of Last Cannon Totting Evil Doom was underpointed. But was he underpointed by 214%? Fuck knows. Some of the other stuff, yeah, I'm going to end it there. I look forward to reading your comments. Cheers guys, catch you on the next video.